You're listening to the Redneck Hockey Podcast, the official gatekeepers of the Trip Tracy fan club and the only Carolina Hurricane show fueled solely on barbecue, Bowberry biscuits, and store brew. As always, I'm your host, Griffin Daughtry, but this time I'm without my Caniac co-hosts, Connor Weeks and Alex Pace. This week, I'm interviewing Michael Lee, co-founder and managing partner of Gondola Capital, host of the Blue Line Banter podcast, youth hockey coach, and huge Caniac. In this interview, Michael and I discussed the growth of youth hockey in the Triangle, the Hurricanes community, and how Bitcoin can fit into all of this. If this is your first time listening, please consider subscribing to the show and following us on Twitter and Instagram. Without further delay, let's do that hockey. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the Redneck Hockey Podcast. This is our first interview, so it should be interesting.
No, absolutely. Thanks for doing this. I'm glad to be here.
So, Michael, you're a man with many hats. You're a father, a business owner, a youth hockey coach, a podcaster, a Caniac by Trip Tracy standards, but you're also sort of a wizard. So over the course of the last 3 weeks, I've seen you make some pretty wild predictions on Twitter, and all of them came true. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those predictions?
I guess the big one was the Aho hat trick. I mean, he's had 4 hat tricks now, and the probability was extremely low in any given game that he would have a hat trick. I didn't have this premonition that Aho was going to get a hat trick in that game. I thought he was overdue to score some goals. I think the tweet was he's overdue. And my man Aho's overdue. I think he's going to get a hat trick tonight. And he gets his first goal, then his second goal. Both of them were, I believe, were in the second period. 2 goals in the second period. I'm like, wait, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then he obviously gets the hat trick there at the end of the third period. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, all my friends were texting me and Twitter. It was great. It was a crazy prediction. Got it right. And then the next game, I predicted. The Canes went down 2-0. I predicted they were going to come back and win the game, and they did. So that was another kind of low probability. That's obviously not even on close to being comparable to the hat trick, but I guess get a little lucky sometimes.
About to say, how well did you do in fantasy hockey this year? Because I might need to call you up, make some game time decisions. Be like, all right, Mike, what do you know?
Yeah, not so great. We'll see how my bracket turns out. But last year in the playoffs, my bracket after round 1, you could basically tore it up. So we'll have to see.
No one I predicted to win is doing well right now. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to give up on the brackets. I came in second in fantasy, but that's all luck.
I am probably irrationally positive with the Canes. You'll never see sort of negativity from me around the team. I always kind of believe in the team, believe in the coaches, and believe in what they do. So I'm always, I guess, the Canes hype man. I don't really get too down on them. So I'm the biggest homer when it comes to that. I'm filling out a bracket. I mean, the Canes are winning the cup in every single one of them. Just the way I do it. So
yeah, I picked the Canes winning the cup. My girlfriend was like, "What are you doing? You're gonna jinx us." I'm like, No. It's the bad attitude. It's the negativity that makes it not possible. I was like, this is what you have to do. You just don't have to tweet about it and carry like a fake Stanley Cup to the game. I saw somebody did that the other night, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that, but I'll definitely pick them for my bracket.
Yeah, keep the negativity for Facebook, for Canes Facebook. We keep it positive on Canes Twitter for the most part.
I haven't been on Canes Facebook in probably about 5 years, but every time I see a screenshot, I'm like, I don't want to go back on there. I have no desire to see what's going on there.
Yeah, same here.
So you're not originally from NC, right? You're from New Jersey?
No, so I'm originally from New Jersey, moved here in 2008. Born and raised in New Jersey, moved here in 2008, and really just haven't looked back since, and have made North Carolina my permanent home.
So how did you land in North Carolina? I know there's a lot of New Jersey relocators that come down here, but why Raleigh? Why the Triangle?
Yeah, so I graduated in the summer of 2008 from Rider University. At the time, 2008 was a difficult time just from a macro environment standpoint. The world was falling apart with the global financial crisis, and being an 08 graduate was a little bit interesting because, especially if you go to school for finance and you're trying to go work up in New York at an asset management firm or in private equity or hedge funds, there just weren't many options. It wasn't the right timing for a kid out of Rider University to go get a job in New York in the finance industry. So I ended up getting a job offer to come down to Raleigh, North Carolina, and work with ADP out of school. And I figured, hey, I'm young. Let's take the shot. And I moved down to Raleigh that summer 2008 after graduating. Had a job, which a lot of kids in 2008 coming out of school didn't. So that was great. And, long story short, I never worked a single day for ADP. I ended up meeting the founder of a local private equity and hedge fund group here in Raleigh, alternative investment firm. A chance encounter, met him, and then ended up not working for ADP and going to work there. And then I spent nearly a decade there, became partner at the firm, and really learned a heck of a lot, met some incredible people, which also then led to me leaving, spinning out, and starting my own firm, Gondola Capital, and that's where things stand today, coming up on 3 years of running Gondola. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, the '08 crisis, I'm sure, is going to tie into some of our other topics regarding Bitcoin, but I'm going to save the Bitcoin stuff for last, just because we are the Redneck Hockey Podcast. So we're going to get some people that are going to they're like, let me hear hockey, and then they're going to hear Bitcoin, and they're like, I'm out. Whereas then all the people that are coming for Bitcoin are going to come in and they need to learn a little bit about hockey. So that's okay. But so we're going to, like I said, we're going to focus on a few different topics.
Yeah, I have a group chat with a couple of the parents or other coaches and team manager for our 8U house league team, which is recent spring season, and we named it 8U Hockey and Bitcoin because I'm always talking about Bitcoin and we're always talking about hockey. And one of the guys in there, it's hilarious to your point about people hear you talking about Bitcoin, they think they're coming here for a hockey podcast. I'm like, peace, I'm out. The ongoing joke in the group chat is when we start talking about Bitcoin, our one buddy says, all right, just remove me from this group. Like, I'm done. And then he's a Bruins fan. We bring up the Bruins. We're like, oh, what about that Marchand Bergeron line? Like, that line's incredible. He's right back in. So just got to balance it.
Yeah, that's funny. So you're definitely the Bitcoin guy in your friend group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist by any means. Bitcoin was definitely my first love, but I've met several other use cases of this digital asset space and decentralized finance, et cetera. So yeah, definitely the folks know that I'm pretty vocal about Bitcoin and my beliefs in Bitcoin and the future of digital assets and also decentralized finance. I mean, it's not just something it's not just a core component of our business at Gondola, but personally, I've been heavily involved in the space. So it's also, I guess, a hobby in a way.
I always want to talk Bitcoin. It's always the first thing you want to talk about, but we'll try to stay as close to hockey as we can for at least a little while. But as I mentioned earlier, you are both a father and a youth hockey coach. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't necessarily grow up playing organized and formal hockey, right? You were a street hockey kid.
Yeah, street hockey with my brother and neighbors, and then also I worked at a local rink. So I was around the game a good bit, around skating a decent amount, and then street hockey. But yeah, the whole organized side of things just wasn't in the cards for me growing up. I played a lot of soccer, played soccer at the competitive level, and all through high school. So yeah, the organized game of hockey is something that I always kind of wanted to do, but just wasn't in the cards as a kid. And I got involved in the game and actually playing in an organized way as an adult, and then also coaching as well.
So how did you get into coaching? Like, was that transition difficult from being someone who, watched hockey, played street hockey where the rules are, they are what you say they are, I guess, and then coming into the sport with someone who has to pay a lot of attention to the rules, to the training, to the ins and outs of the sport? How complicated was that?
Yeah, so prior to coaching hockey, I had a coaching background in soccer. So from a youth sports standpoint, I had about 4 years of actually coaching kids play a sport. Obviously, all sports are different. And I started out coaching at the 6U level, which, is there's way less, it's way less about strategy and way more about kind of letting the kids have fun out there, teaching them basic fundamentals of their skating stride, some agility stuff, some balance and things like that. Let's just bring it to soccer. Coaching soccer, if a parent approaches me after a game or after a training session and they want to have questions or they want to grill me on something, there's not many things that I can't cover in that sport. I know inside and out. My hestation in hockey, while loving the sport and understanding the sport, and I feel like I have a pretty decent hockey sense about me, is I never played as a kid growing up in an organized way. So one of my biggest fears was I know I can handle the kids out there, and I know I can add value in a practice setting and a game setting. But what happens if a parent approaches me and they start asking me all kinds of different questions and I don't know the answers? And so there was some hesitation around that. Ultimately, what ended up I was going to a lot of stick and pucks with my son before he even started playing 6U. We'd go out and skate and play, and I got to know the youth hockey director for Polar here. He saw me around the rink, and one of the information sessions during or after one of the I guess it was like a Little Canes skate session or something like that. He was talking to some of the parents, and then he was like, "We need coaches. Like, we desperately need coaches. Like, if any of you have any interest in coaching, like, please let me know." So I spoke with him after the session. And I'm like, "Look, here's my deal. Like, I could skate pretty well. I play the game. I do chicken bucks with my son. I never played organized as a kid. I'm playing adult league now, which is great. But what do you need in a coach? Like, what are you looking for? And how old's your son?" He's like, 6U. He's like, "All right, you could skate. I know you could skate. You don't." He basically said, "You don't have a choice. Like, we need you. You're signing up." So I'm like, "All right." So he really convinced me. He encouraged me to do it. Thomas, the youth hockey director, he was like, "You got to do it." And so over the last, I guess, couple of years, it's really become something that I'm so glad that he pushed me to do it, because if you think about like the Junior Cane Super 8 program, we have one of the guys that I coached with was, played 4 years in college. Another guy we coached with played semi-pro in Switzerland. The lead coach that runs the development coached NC State's men's hockey team for 11 years. So I'm around people that just are absolute, like, I'm learning the game through them at the same time. Like, it's really like a master class every time I step on the ice. And I'm the kind of coach that there's a lot of intangibles that I could that I bring to the table with the kids. And even off ice stuff. Like, I led off ice trainings that were really cool, and the kids seemed to really benefit from for the Junior Canes. And then even on the ice, I mean, I could do most things out there. And then also having really, really incredible people like Mike Young, who heads up the 8U development program for Junior Canes, 11 years NC State. I mean, there's no one better and I'm out there, whatever Coach Mike needs, chasing pucks, getting kids in order. I mean, I'm all over it. And so there's a value, and I'm learning the game, as time goes on. And the one thing is, like, I think you always, in certain areas in life, have to humble yourself, know everything. But I'm learning at a pretty rapid pace. I'm a sponge to the game. I love the game, and I'm around the right people. And as long as they find value in me being out there, I'll continue to be out there. As I look at it, I think, especially with the travel side of things, getting parents out of coaching at some point is probably a good thing across the board. I'm pretty much an advocate for that. So, at some point there'll be this transition where I'll step aside from coaching, for sure. But at these age levels of 6, 8, 10, I mean, it's having that. I think the extra help out there is awesome, and I love doing it. It's really become a really big purpose in my life, is being around these young kids and helping them develop.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. I guess we have that in common then, because I also didn't grow up playing formalized hockey. I was definitely a street hockey kid, but I actually played soccer as well. So that's funny that we have that in common. One of the reasons I never grew up playing was because of my size when I was a kid. Until at least like a junior year of high school is when I hit my growth spurt. What do you say to parents who are worried that hockey is too physical for younger kids, or people who assume you need to be big to play the sport?
Too physical?
Yeah.
Being around, you can't hit until 14. So, the 6, 8, 10, 12. I mean, these kids are going out there, and I mean, they're in full equipment. The helmet technology is incredible now compared to what it used to be. Think about our last Junior Cane season with the Super 8s. I mean, we had 40 some games, 10 different tournaments in 10 different cities, 80 some practice sessions. Then you go over to the house league and take those same exact numbers, and now you've got double again what we've done at Junior Canes. These kids are just not. It's very rare to see like injuries out there in the super young youth hockey age group. Obviously, as time goes on, that does increase. But for parents that are worried about injuries, I think it's a data thing. I mean, I think you look at football, tackle football, it's a very, very different scenario for young kids at a young age, which is why you've seen less kids kind of enroll in the sport. And ones that do, you're seeing a shift towards more flag football than full contact football. So, even at the youth age of hockey, obviously there's body contact, and body contact's fine. There's just checking is not allowed, which, at this age I think is a good thing. And for the most part, It's the data shows it's a very safe sport. You have your coaches that are highly trained that are ensuring safety. I mean, it's obviously you want to go out there and make sure that the kids are having fun because you want them to come back. But safety is a huge concern. I mean, we're constantly making sure equipment is right, that helmets are buckled, that the kids are in the right spot to be. While it is a dangerous sport, to be as safe as possible when they're out on the ice.
So what's youth hockey like in North Carolina in 2021? So when I was a kid growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, I maybe had like two kids in my in my other sports teams, like baseball teams that played hockey. Do you see it growing since 2008 when you got here? And is there a lot of interest in the sport right now?
I think the growth is just incredible. Obviously, I'm around it, 4 or 5 days a week, but the growth is staggering. I think you look at there's a lot of things that have to do with it. You look what Shane Willis has done over at the Hurricanes with youth hockey and the community outreach. The First Goal program I've tweeted out there several times. I think that First Goal program is the best youth sports program. But forget hockey, like the best youth sports program in the country. It's incredible. It's an incredible way to get kids involved in the sport at a lower entry point, sort of cost factor. The success of the Carolina Hurricanes in 2018, 2019, getting back to the playoffs, that was huge. COVID gave us a little bit of an issue there with the program not being there. But if you look at the success of the Hurricanes and the correlation with youth hockey signups, they're directly correlated. So when you have a pro team that's doing well, more kids want to play the sport. And I look back to that 2018-19 playoff run, and Mikey, my son was 5 years old. We had been doing stick and pucks at the time. He wasn't signed up to do 6U yet at that point, but he'd been skating a little bit. We knew we were going to do First Goal. And we were at all the playoff games, and earlier in the season, we were at a ton of games as well, right? We went to a lot of hockey games, and you're getting arena half full, maybe three-quarters full. The energy's good, but not playoff energy. And so Mikey, he went to his first game at 3 years old. So he's been to a lot of Canes games. And we pull up to round one, game three against Washington in the 2018-2019 playoffs, down 0-2. And I'm just telling Mikey, I'm like, this is going to wait till you see this, man. This is going to be great. And he's a 5-year-old. He thinks he knows what a hockey game is like because he's been to a ton of them at PNC. And I'll never forget being in that arena for the first time. I get the chills even thinking about it, being in the arena for that round one, game three against the Capitals and seeing Mikey's face. And I've been to so many hockey games with him, and I never saw his face quite like that in warmups from when the game started. The entire time, it was just like, oh my gosh. Like it's very clear. Like we get like like you and I could clearly get like, hey, we know the energy is going to be up. We know it's going to be like, get a good idea what it's going to be like. But for a 5-year-old to see that and see how fired up he was, I really think that there was a huge catalyst in getting his motivation and excitement up for First Goal to to really learn to skate well and then go on to 6U, then 8U, then Junior Canes. And I think that playoff run had a lot to do with it. And I think kids that get exposed to a successful pro team, there's just something else that takes place there. So youth hockey in North Carolina is just awesome. It's continuing to grow. I think it will continue to grow. There's a lot of great initiatives, and the arena's going up. You look at WCC. I mean, what a facility that is. For my son and a bunch of other kids to be able to be at WCC every single week in an absolutely beautiful arena with Hurricanes branding and logos everywhere. You walk in and it says "Earn It" really big. You've got this huge Svechnikov sort of fathead sticker mural, whatever you like to say, when you walk in there, and it's just something different. It's different than I worked at a rink, like I said, growing up, and it was this like dingy barn that you'd show up at, and the kids, I don't know if they realize how lucky they are. I mean, it is pretty special. I mean, they're playing on the same ice that the Hurricanes play on weekly, and think about as a kid, if you go play at Yankee Stadium, do you run your practices like your Little League practice at Yankee Stadium? I mean, it's really I think the impact in this area is just huge. I think as a result, the game will continue to grow with youth athletes.
Yeah, that is really, really awesome. I haven't been over to there yet, but when I was a kid, I remember the only places you could really play hockey was like you could play roller hockey at Jelly Beans and you could play ice hockey at the Iceplex. And so I think that's probably why a lot of people didn't play, because it's like if you lived in Wake Forest, which is where I grew up, I mean, that's like a 30-minute drive to the Iceplex. And so most people just played Jelly Beans, and Jelly Beans didn't come in Wake Forest, Wakefield area until I mean, I was probably middle school. So, but going back to what you said about Mikey at game 3, I think we all felt like we were 5-year-olds when we stepped into that stadium, and just how loud it was, just watching the towels go around.
Oh,
I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. It was such a wild experience.
yeah, and then we do bubble playoffs last year. We tried to recreate the experience in the living room, and had we're playing Wade Minter's goal calls off of Twitter on the loudspeakers here in the living room. We had the towels out. We had a playlist of Hurricanes music. So like Mikey and I tried to recreate the atmosphere a little bit, and it was a ton of fun. But now we're back at PNC Arena, 12,000 or more. I think they're calling it 12,000. Maybe it's more. And Mikey and I were back for round 1, game 1, and it was just, I mean, think about sports. It's like, I love sports, but it's way more than the sports aspect. I mean, playing the sport is great. Whatever sport that may be. I think hockey is probably the most fun out of all of them that I've played. And but it doesn't matter the sport. If you're involved in sports from a player standpoint, from a spectator standpoint, if you're involved in sports, magic things happen, and bonds are created, and it's really special. I think about the bond that it's been able to create, the sport of hockey, for my son and I. It's just amazing, from him playing to going to that tailgate on Monday and being in the arena on Monday, and that energy and excitement. And a couple of Mikey's friends who are at game 1 aren't going to be at this one. So, the tailgate's up in arms. We don't have like the same group and friends. So I said to Mikey, I was like, hey, do you want to go? Like, if you don't want to go, like, that's fine. We could see if there's a game 5, and we'll be there for round 2, hopefully 3 and 4. He's like, no, yeah, definitely. Like, So we'll be back there tonight, and Mike with me. And it's just a cool bond experience. Pick him up from school, go straight to the arena, summer tailgating in Raleigh. Just being involved in that, the bonding that it creates. It's, I continue to remind myself, and I remember sitting in the crowd here on Monday at that first playoff game, and I just had a moment where, like you said, you feel like a kid again. But it's this moment of just being thankful that we were there, and that I was there with my son. And it's just, and you just kind of look around and you see all these people. The world has been in a bit of disarray over the last year and a half, and COVID has been wildly polarizing. It's been wildly damaging to families of people who lost loved ones. And sports bring us together, and being back in that arena, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, how you vote, what you do. Everyone in that arena during that game is waving a towel, is fired up, giving high fives to each other. And that's the beauty of sports, and that's what we've been missing. And I think it's just like incredible that we're all back in that arena together. I can't wait to get back in there tonight, and it's just a pretty special thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially right now. Just things seem to be so hostile and polarizing, and nothing is more important than the community that sports can bring. But so now, growing up in New Jersey, I have to ask, how did you become a Canes fan? Was it just because you moved down here in '08, or were you originally like a Devils fan, or
Yeah, so I grew up a Devils fan. Brodeur was my first favorite player as a goalie. I remember my neighbor Andrew down the street. He got a hockey net, and then we got another hockey net. We got sticks. He was the first one to get goalie equipment, and when the neighbor gets goalie equipment, it's like everyone's so fired up. Like, yes, we got goalie equipment, and the Devils were a formidable squad during that time. With Brodeur, Scott Stevens, the list goes on and on. So definitely grew up liking the Devils, but went to playoff games to see the Devils play. Love the game, obviously. Moving to Raleigh in 2008, started to go to Canes games, and I became I'll root for the local team. That's something. When I came here, I'm like, hey, they got pro hockey. Like, that's awesome. Like, I'm gonna start to follow the Canes, and that's great. I think that the allegiance to the Canes. So I grew up a Giants fan, and I've been to season tickets to the New York Giants football. Absolutely awesome. Love the Giants. Saw the Giants win 2 Super Bowls. The allegiance that I have for the Canes is far greater than any sports team that I've ever supported. And I think, it started in 2008. but Mikey was born in 2013, his first game in 2015. And once Mikey and I started to bond over that, and then I mean that's when I think that creates the strong, like a huge bond. And then the first goal program, you talk to Shane Willis, and Shane's like, look, the first goal program, for every kid that participates, 3 hockey fans are created and 3 Canes fans typically. And it's really interesting how this all works, because when you're part of, the Canes aren't just a hockey team, they're a community, right? And that community is the fans, the players, the team, the spectators, the young kids that play Polar House League, or the young kids that play Junior Canes. Everyone is part of this community. And when you benefit from the community, by being a part of the community, like we've been, the allegiance grows stronger, and it's pretty special. So, moving here, I knew I was going to support the Canes. I never quite realized how crazed of a fan that I would be. I mean, I don't miss a game. I follow every single detail around the Hurricanes. Season tickets. It's a very big part of our lives, and I think that bonding with my son, and then also the Canes being such big pieces of the community here in Raleigh, just kind of creates this allegiance that's tough to break.
Yeah, definitely understand that. I mean, we talked about it, I think, on the last podcast. It's like everyone's either a Wolfpack fan or a Duke fan or a Carolina fan, and they're all kind of at each other's throats about basketball or football, but like everyone comes together and everyone's a Hurricanes fan. No one cares what team you pull for, college wise, but at the moment you step in PNC, we're all Canes fans.
Yeah, and it's an incredible group of fans. I mean, the fun that we have out there, too. Like, I mess around with everybody. Can't wait for the cup run. Can't wait for tailgating season in Raleigh. I mean, it's just so fun. And, again, being back in that arena, if March 12th of 2020, when the NHL sent out the tweet announcing that they're suspending the season, if that was the start of this pandemic, which it sure felt like it, I just viewed Monday being in that arena with those fans going nuts, and those towels waving and tailgating before. I viewed that as the end of this thing and a return to some level of normalcy, and it just felt amazing.
I'm gonna have to give you a shout out for becoming a Canes fan during like the worst years to become a Cane fan. I think those like 13, 14 years were pretty rough for people. I mean, I remember being a kid. I mean, because just talking about like how you grew up a New Jersey fan, but then you became a Canes fan, you moved down here. Like, not everyone does that. You definitely remember, you go to those like 2012, 2013 games, and we're playing Boston, and it's like 75% Boston fans. And then the Canes fans are just like shut out by how loud the Boston fans are. Or Buffalo fans. Like, Buffalo fans are notorious for coming down in drives or in droves. Those guys are always up in there, and they're loud. And fortunately, we beat them every time. But like, it can get in the heads of the players and get in the heads of the fans. Really cool
and it
to
was
see
very
someone
confusing to Mikey being at Buffalo game.
Yeah.
We've been to several Buffalo games, and like we're sitting around, like we're surrounded by Buffalo guys, and he's like looking around confused. They were always super kind to Mikey, which was nice. But yeah, I mean, they're partying, going nuts, and it's like, we're at our home arena. Like, this sucks.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, playing Buffalo, if it's a busy stadium, almost feels like playoff atmosphere, just because of how, I mean, like the fans get so engaged, because no one wants to hear Buffalo fans cheer. That's just not fun for anyone. So like the Canes fans will get louder and take that playoff mentality and bring it to beat Buffalo, which is kind of funny now because, they've had such a bad season, but they haven't always been bad. And then, take the fact that they got Jeff Skinner from us, and then you've got everyone kind of battling over the Jeff Skinner thing, which it's really interesting to see how that goes down.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll switch gears a little bit. So you're also the co-founder of Gondola Capital. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Gondola Capital and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Gondola Capital, we focus on the alternative investment space, mostly private equity, to a lesser extent, some hedge fund strategies. So if you're a private equity fund manager or an alternative investment fund manager, typically what you're looking to focus on is pulling the levers, investing in deals, finding deals, but you need capital to do that. So at Gondola, we focus on working with registered investment advisors, family offices, and institutions like endowments and foundations, in helping be a sourcing arm and showcasing really high quality funds and deals, and helping the fund managers on the capital formation side. So we're the capital formation arm for several of the leading private equity funds or hedge funds in the industry, and with a pretty big focus right now on the digital asset and crypto space.
Yeah, so that's what's really interesting about the digital assets and the decentralized finance, because it's pretty. I mean, people think that they've already missed the boat when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto, and I'm like, no, 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 we're still so early. People really don't tend to grasp just how early they are. Like I remember, I think it was last August during the pandemic, a few of our buddies, we all quarantined for a few weeks, and then we're like, let's get a beach house and go hang out on the beach and just try to have a normal weekend. And me being the Bitcoin guy in the group, of course, I don't remember who it was, but they know that if they poke me enough, I'll just start rambling for 20 minutes straight, which I'll have to prevent myself from doing now. But they were basically just like poking at me over how goofy Bitcoin was. And I was sitting there talking on the beach, giving them the whole spiel. And they're like, oh man, it would have been great if I had gotten into Bitcoin, 2 years ago. And I'm like, no, 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 it's still early. It's still early. And they're all, running around laughing at me. They're like, Bitcoin's not going over $9,000. You're insane. I think it had just gotten back to like 8,000 in August. And of course, fast forward 6 months and everyone's texting me. They're like, what's going on? Bitcoin's at $26,000. Bitcoin's at $30,000. Bitcoin's at $50,000. Why didn't you tell me to buy? And I'm like, dude, I have nothing to say to you. Everyone learns about Bitcoin precisely when they're meant to, and everyone buys their Bitcoin exactly when they're meant to. Everyone owns as much Bitcoin as they're meant to own. So what was your Bitcoin journey like? How did you first hear about it, and when did you finally begin investing in it?
Yeah, I first heard about it in 2013 from one of my partners at my previous firm. He was the chief operating officer, somewhat of a mentor to me in my early days. Really smart guy, super well connected, and he's not going to typically tell you something. He's never kind of shot me in the wrong way. Someone I really look up to, and so he told me about Bitcoin. I remember sitting in his office, and he was like, "Hey, there's this thing, Bitcoin," and just going on and on about it. And I just said to myself, like, I'm mid 20s, and I'm like, this sounds like complete BS. Like this
Yep.
is like, no way. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, and I actually just completely dismissed it. Really. I was like, I might have even used the word sounds like a scam. Like, I may have used the word scam, and I completely dismissed it. You'll continue to hear about it here and there, but didn't dig in at all, just very dismissive of it. 2016, I had a friend of mine who was mining, and he was telling me about mining. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. What's this all about? And I ended up being able to get my hands on some Bitmain miners, and plugged them in, at my apartment, and running miners now. And at the end of the day, I was running Litecoin miners on Antminer L3 pluses, and every single day I'm getting Litecoin deposited into my wallet, and also Dogecoin, because in early 2017 they set up merged mining with Litecoin, so Litecoin was helping to support the Doge network. So if you put in a Doge wallet address at the end of each day, now you're getting Dogecoin as well. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm kind of learning about this whole space and mining. So mining both Litecoin and Bitcoin at the time, continued to do that all the way through 2017, Christmas time 2017. I remember I was in Aruba on vacation, and I had the miners running at home. I had all kinds of Bitcoin, all kinds of Litecoin, all kinds of different stuff. And like, the market was just going up, and it was just incredible. That's when the first time it nearly hit 20K Bitcoin. And I'm sitting there in Aruba, like, I am rich. This is the bet. Like, let's go. Like, and then obviously, like, that all changes pretty quickly in this world. And what I found is the digital asset space, it can humble you really quickly. And like, the whole diamond hands thing, like, I love that stuff. And it's like, I think it's so true. It's like, you have to be disciplined in this space, and disciplined not to react to fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like, if you believe in something, conviction in something should not be dependent on price. Price doesn't always reflect the value, especially in a nascent category like we're experiencing right now. So the first way that I came about owning any type of crypto, including Bitcoin, was through mining. And then in late 2017, I started to purchase Bitcoin. Somewhere even near the highs. I remember in December, it's, getting up at 18, 19, 20. I'm buying at that point. Then it fell, buying again. So really, I was mining in 2016 and 2017, started buying in 2017, and I've bought every year since. So, I've bought Bitcoin for 3 straight days. As of today, right? I bought Bitcoin this morning. during the drawdown. So it's a journey. If I officially heard about it in 2013, but got involved in 2016, I mean that would put me actually involved in this space for about 5 years. But every day, working in this space and working with the best investment managers in the space, full stop. I feel dumb every single day. I mean, there's just so much to learn in the space. I tell it's like Bitcoin, digital assets is the rabbit hole of all rabbit holes. It's the ball of yarn where you pull one thread on it and the entire thing falls out, tangled up on the floor. Like it's never ending. And again, it's like one of those categories where I just don't think it's possible to perfect. And while feeling knowledgeable, again, the smartest folks in the world that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars are the folks that I'm working with, billions of dollars, and they make me feel dumb every day. But it also motivates me to keep learning, to keep working, to keep focused, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely, you can't just like buy your Bitcoin and be like, all right, cool, I know what I know now, and I'm a Bitcoiner, and that's it. It's like you have to constantly, it's almost like following the news, especially with like this whole Elon Musk dump thing. People bring up like the whole ecological arguments about like whether or not Bitcoin is bad for the environment. And it's like, if you don't sit around and you don't read and you don't engage with Bitcoin Twitter, you don't know that Nick Carter's been writing about, how Bitcoin uses renewable energy. He's been writing about that for the last like 3 years. He's already dispelled a lot of those myths. And it's like, if only Elon Musk had just paid attention and read a little bit more, and maybe we wouldn't be having this giant sell off right now.
Yeah, well, obviously Elon Musk knows that what he's saying is not true.
Right.
He's pulling levers, he's manipulating markets for his benefit, and to kind of support his ego, and that's fine. I think for us in the know that have done the work, we realize what it is for what it is. The thing that I need to continually remind myself is there are a lot of people that were the same person as me back in 2013, sitting in that office and saying, this is BS, this is a scam. And they're there today. And I think the toxicity is a word that I've heard around, sort of Bitcoin maximalism. And I think as a space, education is important. Obviously the information's out there to go and DYOR, do your own research. But at the same time, I find myself constantly reminding myself that, yeah, look, there are a lot of folks that are in the same place I was 8 years ago, back in 2013, and they're just there now. Like if they're interested in learning, I'm always willing to have the discussions on what I've learned. Like you mentioned Nick Carter. Like when I heard the Elon Musk stuff about energy consumption, I'm like, I've been studying this for 3 to 5 years. Like it's very obvious that there's not an energy issue with Bitcoin, or the energy that Bitcoin is utilizing actually serves a really good purpose. I mean, proof of work is a very, very strong thing to secure the Bitcoin network. If you think about the value that brings to the table, but anyway, I mean, here's the rabbit hole. I mean, we could go on and on about all of that. And I think in thinking about Elon Musk, it's best to stick to the facts. I mean, Elon Musk is long billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Tesla, SpaceX, and personally, he's not selling any. He said he's not selling, and maybe he is, but he still owns it. I think you just have to follow the financial incentive, follow the money, and over 75% of Bitcoin mining is done through renewables. And Bitcoin miners there's this global competition going on amongst Bitcoin miners to go out and find the cheapest energy, to innovate, to find the cheapest energy. It's a financial incentive to find renewable power to mine Bitcoin. And that's what the Bitcoin miners have done, which is pretty incredible. And Elon Musk knows all that. I mean, like Bitcoin Twitter doesn't need to teach Elon Musk that. He knows it. There's another reason why he's doing this. That reason, I guess, can be debated, but I think there's a financial incentive involved.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I tweeted at you whenever this whole thing went down, and I was like, well, I mean, the guy does have a bunch of major companies that rely heavily on government subsidies, and no one is more threatened by Bitcoin than the US dollar. So it wouldn't be out of line to assume that someone within the government was like, hey man, you need to cool it with playing around with these cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin. It's not good for us. It's not going to be good for you because, you need our money. And it's just strange to me that he would go the environmental route when it's like, do we have to go in the long discussion about how many minerals have to be yanked out of the ground to build Tesla car batteries. But like I said, it's a rabbit hole, and it's super easy to get lost down it. And
Yeah, and like the whole thing about like price not reflecting value at all times. I mean, it's just the way the investment world works. And what's going on with Bitcoin right now and digital assets and the drawdown, like that's another thing that I need to remind myself is like I've seen this through multiple cycles now, and being invested through multiple cycles, I've actually seen this exact thing happen. So each time I become less worried. Like I know where I'm pretty confident about where my conviction is, and I'm not depending that conviction on the actual day-to-day price. Nothing changes. I mean, Bitcoin is still the most disruptive technology of our lifetime, more than Google, more than Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, which we're talking on now, more than the iPhone. I mean, think about Zoom. 15 years ago, you and I talking on a camera like this on video call with headphones on and fancy microphones. I mean, this is sci-fi stuff 12 years ago. Like,
right.
and now it's like you hop on FaceTime on it's incredible when you think about that. Bitcoin, it took Bitcoin 12 years to become a $1 trillion asset. $1 trillion in 12 years. That's the most disruptive technology of our lifetime. It took Google 22 years to get to a trillion. It took Amazon 25. Apple, it took over 40. Microsoft, it took over 40. Bitcoin, it took 12. And then when you think about the volatility, Amazon being a public company for over 20 years, 21 years, every single year, including this one, Amazon's had a double-digit drawdown in their stock price. The average has been 31%. 5 times it's been greater than 50%, and twice it's been more than 90%. I mean, when was the best time to sell Amazon stock? Never. So it's just like the Bitcoin volatility is a feature, not a bug. You need volatility to have sort of outsized returns. And if you zoom out during times like this, it becomes very clear that everything's fine. Drawdowns happen. Be disciplined. Hashtag diamond hands, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the whole because like you said, if you've been in Bitcoin long enough, you go through these cycles. I mean, I think I first heard about it in 2012 or 13, back when it was just like only like the libertarian community. I was like really interested in that in college, and it was like that was all who was talking about it. They were the early adopters. They're the ones talking about it. They were the ones writing books about it. They were having festivals for it and everything. I remember hearing about it, and I was like, oh, anti-government money, that's cool. I'm like, $12 for a Bitcoin? Like, what am I going to do with it? I'm a broke college kid who can't find a job. This isn't for me. I was like, it'd be really cool to own some, but not yet. And then you like fast forward to 2017, and it's like hitting $13,000. I'm at the bar with my buddies, and I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I just do this before? But eventually I got into it as well. I think I started buying in 2017, like everyone else did. But the difference between me and everyone else is that I didn't sell it when it dropped back down. Because I remember watching like a video with Seyfedin Moose and Jeff Dice from the Mises Institute talking about, I guess, the economic properties of Bitcoin and how it correlates to gold. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. And so I bought, and I've been holding since basically I literally bought the bottom of the dip in 2018. So I bought it at $3,800, and I've just been sitting around holding it, and I've continued to buy. But everyone keeps texting me. They're like, if Bitcoin goes up $2,000, I get a text. If Bitcoin goes down $2,000, I get a text. And I'm like, I'm not looking. I'm zen. I know exactly what I put my money into. I have no quarrels with why I'm here and why I'm doing this. And it's just, for me, it's easy to just tune out the prices, not talk about what's going up, what's going down, other than, obviously this is like news worthy. I don't know I guess you can call it manipulation from Elon Musk, but it's fun to see how all this has gone down.
Yeah, and I think like this space is still evolving. Like I said, I mean, 12 years, $1 trillion asset. I spent 2018 and 2019 traveling across the country with Pomp, going to see financial advisors, to talk to them about Bitcoin, educate them on Bitcoin, and a fund that we were raising at the time, together. And it's funny, a lot of those advisors that dismissed us in 2018, 2019, maybe just short of laughing at us like, oh, this is uninvestable, this is BS. Same thing I was like in 2013. So Pomp and I are going around the country in 2018, 2019 and getting that very similar type response. And now all of a sudden, 2021, Q1, Q2, it's been the largest amount of inflows. A lot of those same advisors that were laughing in 2018, 2019 have come back to the table now, like, hey, we want to invest, we're ready, our clients are ready, we need your help. And so it's just an evolution that's going to continue to happen, and adoption will continue to grow. Headlines will continue to be crazy. There'll be wild swings. There'll be crazy things that take place. There'll be just go back to the Amazon volatility numbers. I mean, it's happened it's happened consistently for 20 years with Amazon, and it was never a good time to sell Amazon stock ever.
Right. I always forget that Pop is from, well, I know he's not from here, but I know he lives or used to live down here. I guess Morgan Creek Digital is in Chapel Hill, right? Is that correct? Or maybe it's wrong.
Yeah, they're Chapel Hill. So I knew Mark Yusko going back to 2008 when I first moved down here, and that's how I got tied in with Mark, and then later tied in with Pomp and Jason Williams, and did a lot of work with those guys. And yeah, Morgan Creek there in Chapel Hill, and yeah, great firm. And then we also work with Ben Foreman of PowerFi and Santiago Roel Santos and those guys are which in my opinion is the top DeFi fund in the universe, and will continue to be. They've got a pretty special thing going on there.
Oh, that's awesome. I've been tweeting at all those guys for the last like 4 years. It's kind of, it's surreal to see how everything's changed and how, like a lot of us have gone from being laughed at. Cause like I used to write Bitcoin articles for FEE, which is the Foundation of Economic Education. And, early days, it's like no one wanted to read them. People are like, why are you writing about this? And now it's like we've all been vindicated. Even as the prices drop, it's like we're still exactly where we're supposed to be, and people aren't laughing anymore. And it's definitely a serious industry.
Yeah, I mean, I had multiple investor calls this morning about just not planned calls, just focusing. They just, I think it just, we're here. It just takes a little bit of comforting. Like, hey, it's okay. This is expected. Maybe it's a good time to buy more.
Right. Yeah. Now, if they're getting calls trying to buy the dip, they're like, hey, is now a good time? You get that call, that text message all the time. Is now a good time? There's always a good time. But
always a good time.
I can't remember how I ended up following you on Twitter. I think it's just when I was following random Caniacs, and then at some point you tweeted the word few, and I was like, okay, this guy, me and him are gonna have a lot in common. And so, but at one point we went back and forth, tweeting at the NHL, tweeting at random figures within the NHL and at the Canes and the league players, everyone. How do you think Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general can affect the NHL, the league, and the players if they all decided to adopt it?
We've seen the NBA kind of take some moves there with their NFT platform. We've seen Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks accepting Bitcoin, Doge for ticket sales, etc. I think the bigger thing here is professional sports is a business, right? The professional sports teams, they all have a balance sheet, just like a S&P 500 company, and companies today have a balance sheet problem because if you're sitting on cash, that is not necessarily a good thing. And if you're not worried about what governments are doing to their currencies, you're probably not paying close enough attention. And the last year, 40% of all the dollars ever printed were printed in one single year. This year, there's a proposal right now for a $4 trillion spending package plus another 2 and 2. So that takes you to 8. 8 trillion with a T. Inflation numbers last month were the highest that we've seen in quite some time. None of that is good for folks that hold cash and continually see the value of our dollar debased. So how do you protect your purchasing power? How do you protect if you're a corporation or you have a balance sheet like a professional sports team? You have to denominate some of those dollars into hard money. Gold could be considered hard money. Bitcoin is hard money, or a store of value, somewhere where you could park capital and not have to worry about 12 guys sitting around a table determining what how much more we're going to continue to print of that particular currency, which ultimately depreciates the actual value of it. So from just taking it to the Canes, I know we've both kind of tweeted at the Canes around, obviously which player will be the first NHL player to come out as a Bitcoiner. Nasher, who's a huge influencer in the hockey world, sponsored by Bauer. I tweeted at Nasher. He responded, "Yeah, I've been in Bitcoin." Like young people, they're in Bitcoin. If you ask folks, over 35 years old, how much Bitcoin do you have? They're like, Bitcoin, like not much, or my financial advisor isn't recommending it. You ask folks under 35, they're like, what's a financial advisor? And I have 50% of my net worth in Bitcoin. Like it's, so young people, I think, get it. From a business standpoint and corporate standpoint, there's definitely an issue with holding cash. If you don't think that, you're probably not paying attention. And I think that Bitcoin can solve a useful purpose for folks, for organizations, pro sports teams looking to protect the value of their capital.
Right. People kind of overlook, like they assume that because a sports team exists, that it's just like this like massive money making machine. But it's from my understanding, it's pretty hard to turn a profit on an NHL team, especially in the South. So, for me, it's like if these companies embrace Bitcoin, they convert some of the cash on their balance sheets to Bitcoin, as Michael Saylor would suggest they do. It would do untold things for their organization. It could create massive amounts of wealth for them to give back to the community, because like you said, that's what the Canes do. They're not just a hockey team that put on a spectacle for us to watch every week. They're also giving money back to the community. They're creating opportunities for people within the community. And that's something that could go leagues further from where it is now than just, having all this cash get squandered by inflation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, we'll see it happen. It's just a matter of when. It's like everything in this space that we always talk about. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you'd like to see it happen sooner rather than later. You'd like to see some NHL players kind of come out and create awareness, but at the same time, it's also, Bitcoin is far greater than any one entity, individual organization. The decentralization is what makes it so special. That's why, worshiping the words of an Elon Musk, I think we've all learned a lesson there. It's like, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, us being, supporters of the Canes, it would be incredible to see the organization take a step like that. And it would really help put them on the national map. And it seems like the Canes are the kind of organization that likes to operate on the fringes a bit and do things a little bit differently and lead in certain ways. And I think to see that, this is a call to the Canes and Tom Dundon. I mean, to see them come out and take a step, that would be a huge benefit in, like you mentioned, in so many different areas. The list goes on and on.
Now, were you surprised to find out that Tripp and Mike Maniscalco were secret Bitcoiners?
Yeah, I mean, we found that out on Twitter, right? Tripp responded to a tweet saying, actually, I bought it at a birthday dinner I was having. Like, Tripp's incredible. But yeah, I mean, not surprised. I think that there are a lot more of them out there than they actually say. And when things are starting to go really well, that's when people start to come out of the woodworks a little bit. The stigma of holding Bitcoin is pretty much gone, in my opinion, at this point. Like, it's pretty much mainstreamed, but I'm not so surprised about Tripp and Mike. I could see them sitting at dinner and pulling up a Coinbase or Gemini app and aping into some Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see Tripp being interested in it, just because that guy's interested in everything. So,
Yeah.
Why do you think that the NHL has been so quiet compared to, some of these European football leagues or soccer leagues, the NBA and the NFL? You've already seen players converting their salaries, but you don't hear much, like you said, you don't hear a lot of noise coming from the NHL. There are definitely people who secretly have it, but they're not talking about it. There's no big news article saying, Sidney Crosby wants his signing bonus in Bitcoin. You don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL historically has been kind of, I guess, a conservative organization, to say the least. I mean, you look back to, obviously, Don Cherry's not the NHL, but that sort of old guard mentality of tradition and keeping things the same. I mean, just the Canes kind of going out on a limb with the Storm Surge and getting kind of berated by the old guard NHL type folks. I don't know. I think the NHL takes a pretty conservative stance in a lot of areas. Maybe this is one of them. But again, I mean, that's going to change. I mean, it's just a matter of when, not if, I think. But yeah, other than the fact, I don't know if you have any thoughts there, but it's kind of expected from the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can see why players maybe wouldn't want to do it, just because, I mean, like, the average NHL salary is not an average NFL salary. And so the players can view it as, look, I don't have as much to risk, because that, I mean, people still view Bitcoin as a risk. I mean, it's definitely an accepted, um, destigmatized currency option for people, but there's still a lot of fear. I mean, we've already seen that with the Elon Musk thing. Elon tweets one thing, and now everyone's running around like chickens with their head cut off. So it could be that. I think you're right about the NHL just being a very traditional organization, especially you talk to like Northern hockey folks. Like they don't like half of the traditions that Southern hockey teams have kind of brought into the game. Like they don't like the tailgating, they don't like the catfish. So I could see where you're coming from there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something that maybe they just need help from outside organizations, like people like yourself, working with these teams and these players and helping them get to a place where they could feel comfortable? Or like, do you think that's going on in the NFL, or do you think these players are just like Russell Okung is kind of like the Bitcoin OG when it comes to Bitcoin athletes? Like, do you think people are working with him and helping him out, or if that was his own personal journey?
Yeah, no, I mean, like Russell got help from a lot of folks in the industry. One, he was intellectually curious on his own.
Mm-hmm.
He got help from Pomp. He got help from Jack Mullers. He got help from leaders in the Bitcoin community because he was intellectually curious. He had a passion to learn, and Russell's someone who's really dug into this space. I mean, he held meetups to discuss this category with people. Like he really dug in. And I don't know I don't know many people that have done the work and at the end of the work have had the conclusion that, yeah, I'm just not that interested. This thing isn't real. Like this thing isn't disruptive. If you do the work, you pretty much come to the same conclusion. Russell's done the work, and he's also been open-minded and receptive to work with leaders in the community. Like, I know personally from my friendship with Pomp that Russell's worked directly with Pomp and Jack Mullers, who basically set up the Lightning net or the Lightning Network layer that in Strike that allows folks to Russell to be paid in Bitcoin pretty easily. So I think that one of the problems has been that financial advisors, they don't want to look silly in front of their clients, or they don't want to look like they don't know something. They don't want to look stupid in front of their clients. And most financial advisors right now, if you ask them about Bitcoin, they're going to dismiss it. One, most of them can't buy it, or custody it. And two, most of them don't have the wherewithal to talk about it. So they take the path of least resistance and don't talk about it. So, most of these NHL guys have some kind of financial advisor. Most of these financial advisors aren't adept or experts at Bitcoin or digital assets. But I'm seeing that change right now because we work with a lot of these folks, and the amount of inflows into this space have never been greater. And Gondola is one of the leaders in bringing folks to this space in the entire country. So I get a front row seat to see the 18 that were laughing at us that are putting their clients into our deals now. So that evolution of the financial advisor, the capability for financial advisors to be able to access these types of strategies is going to continue to get greater. I think the NHL Players Association has a duty to their players to make sure that the financial advisors that they're approving, they're working with, are adept in this category, because it's something that you can no longer ignore as a fiduciary. It's something that you have to pay attention to. And so, yeah, I think that players need the education, but they also need to be intellectually curious in some shape or form about the space, or just very trusting, which is a tough thing to do when it's your money.
Well, it is game day, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because we do have some tailgating to do later, and you are a working man. So I'll give you one last question before I let you go. Who's going to be the first NHL player to adopt Bitcoin, and why is it going to be Vincent Trocheck?
So Troach is on the cutting edge. He's a slick, cool guy. I could see him just making the announcement. He's got a bunch of money. He's made a bunch of money. He's still making money. There's zero reason why Vincent Trocheck should not own a small. I don't know what percentage of Troach's assets should be invested in Bitcoin. There's obviously a much more holistic look you'd have to do to determine, okay, what percentage of Troach, your assets, should you have in Bitcoin? But what I am certain of is 0% is not the right number. It's got to be something greater than zero. Troach needs to own Bitcoin. I hope he's the first one to do it. I know I tweeted out Kirby Doc. I think Kirby Doc, and he's going to be making some money here. He's super tech oriented. He loves video games. He's great at chill. He's in like the Nasher. I would throw him in like the Nasher crowd. I bet you Kirby Doc already owns a little bit of Bitcoin. He didn't respond to me on Twitter when I sent him that tweet, but I bet you he already does. Who knows if he announces first or if Troach announces, but Troach, 0% wrong answer. He's got to have some exposure.
Agreed, 110%. Well, Michael, I really appreciate you coming on the show and talking to me about, youth hockey, talking about the Canes, talking about Bitcoin, all of our favorite subjects. It's not every day you get to do that with everyone. So,
nah, this has been great. We could talk about this stuff for hours, days, weeks, months, years. I mean, this is like you said, it's our favorite topic. So